Alright, so before I start this, I want to clarify. I am sick as of recording, so I apologize for my voice not being as smooth and buttery as usual. And secondly, okay, this is going to be hard for me, so keep that in mind. I'm coming out. I like FNAF. I'm not obsessed with it like other degenerates, but honestly, I do like the series. I learned about it when I was a little baby sco at a sleepover, when I saw my friend playing FNAF 2 on his iPod Touch they brought, and it terrified me. But I still thought it was cool. Of course, big noise, go bang, is scary, but as someone who had a very deep fear of Disney mascots as a little kid, it creeped me the hell out. It almost feels like body horror, with your flesh replaced by metal and your insides seeping and rotting out of a Chuck E. Cheese mascot. And as for horror game choices, it was either playing that or Outlast, and I personally did not want my sheets to change color that night. I've looked at the MatPat vids, I've seen the Markiplier Let's Plays, 3's my favorite, and the best song is It's Me by Tryhard Ninja. I'm gonna die on this hill, and I've been fighting like it's round 50 on Knocked for years, man. I mean, my sleep paralysis demon is basically Toy Bonnie, so that's gotta count for something, right? So I've waited 8 long years! And after multiple scripts, development hell, Scott retiring from the series, and a couple unrelated movies, it actually got made! So, how was it? Is it pure Kino, Scorsese approved? The worst thing I've ever seen? I'm not gonna lie, there is a lot to talk about, and I don't know exactly where to begin. Okay, I know where to start. I went into FNAF expecting 2 outcomes. 1, I thought it was going to be absolutely horrendous, or 2, I thought it was going to be surprisingly good. I would have been ecstatic with either or, and that's my problem. It is the definition of a mixed bag. For right now, I'll talk about general things in the movie, and then I'll head over to the spoilers. I'll start out with costumes and set design because honestly, it's its strongest point. It's just fantastic. Freddy's is recreated really well, and it's exactly what I imagine it would look like from the original game. There's a great degree of detail in the place, even with the added areas that still feels like an abandoned Chuck E. Cheese. The animatronics themselves are also wonderfully made. Jim Henson's creature shot, good shit. There's only one shot I could think of that involves CGI. Other than that, it's almost entirely practical effects and some costume work. They might honestly be a bit too expressive in certain scenes, but that's just me. My only complaint with the main designs is that I feel like they could look a bit older. Obviously, they were just made recently, but the films are set in the 2000s. Some wear and tear to them, add a couple stains, definitely would have helped with the creepy vibes. I think Foxy's the most well-made. He's already a bit tattered in the games, and I think it definitely helps since he has the most horror scenes. There was one shot of him standing down the hallway with a single red eye glowing. Very nice. And right, the red eyes. It's honestly not as bad as I thought it would be. The movie's got good lighting, especially in the horror scenes. They use a lot of flashing lights to show how the animatronics would move around the place. The eyes are a lot brighter than expected, so I felt it helped in that regard. Besides, one character does have the white dot eyes, but it didn't fit that well, at least for how they were portrayed. Speaking of horror, there's not enough of it. There's only a couple real scenes I can think of that they were actually cruising into the scary bits in FNAF. And that's the worst sin this movie has because they are easily the best parts. Obviously, it's PG-13, which definitely restricts exactly what you can show, especially for a couple scenes. But still, for PG-13, I thought it was done pretty well. Same goes for the comedic moments, in my opinion. FNAF is at its best when it's a campy horror comedy, even in the original games. That's when it was at its peak. It's that nice juxtaposition between killer animal robots and child murder. I was expecting Evil Dead 2. I did not get that. A good chunk of the movie is just subplots that are only somewhat related, which I get. It's a shorter movie, and the original game doesn't have a lot of story to begin with. And honestly, I think they would have been fine, but the writing and acting is just not very good. A lot of the regular dialogue is just not well written, especially if it's in relation to the plot. The acting doesn't help. I know a lot of people were excited for Josh Hutcherson as Mike Schmidt, but honestly, I found him kind of stiff. It surprisingly helps in the emotional scenes a bit since he's kind of pushed down a lot of trauma so he doesn't know how to act properly. He's just like me, for real. But besides talking to the younger sister Abby, he's just kind of awkward. Elizabeth Leo also wasn't great. She acts aloof the whole movie and is kind of like a love interest to Mike, but I am not seeing it. In fairness though, that's more of a writing problem anyways. Matthew Lillard did a good job, got exactly what I wanted out of him, but he's barely in the movie, so it's not like we get to see much of him anyways. Honestly, Piper Rubio, the actress who played Abby, did the best job. I think her character was written pretty well compared to the rest, and her conversations with Mike felt realistic. Back to my original point, because the fluff ain't well acted or scripted, the pacing's just fucked. Before the actual start of night 1, the movie is extremely slow. And there are actually really good moments in the movie too, just it's the exception, not the rule. I appreciate how they tried, but they really should have just written it like the original games. Have the background lore present, but not overwhelming, and progress from terror to the movie equivalent of a rage game. Alright, so, spoiler section. I'm gonna assume you've already seen the movie. If not, here's the time for the conclusion. This is your final warning. Now, even for everything I've said earlier, there is one crowning achievement this movie's got. Fan service. Damn, has it got fan service. FNAF YouTubers, conspiracy mechanics from the original game, urban legends like Sparky the Dog, the knockoff merch, the dream theory from FNAF 4 is a fucking plot point, and the Living Tombstone song is now canon. They were faithful to the entire community, and Scott was probably coming up with new ideas he just thought of to shove into the script, and I mean that in the best possible way. It was probably very fun to write, I'll tell you that. The only one I could think of that wasn't very good was when Purple Guy screamed, "I always come back." I don't know, it just felt a bit forced compared to how natural everything else was. But honestly, they missed some easy things to put in. Just off the top of my head, there was no phone guy besides Afton's first call. There was not a single scene in the movie where Mike is on the defensive. He's pretty much just sleeping most of the nights. This leads into the dreaming subplot, and now I get to talk about the wacky choices they did for the subplots. Just a heads up for the rest of the video, I'm gonna be nitpicking the writing, and it's probably gonna be really annoying, but I don't care. So, Mike is essentially a sleeping pill addict who keeps on wanting to dream about Nebraska since his little brother got kidnapped on a camping trip and he wants to find out who did it. I think this is actually a pretty cool concept, especially since it's basically just based on a fan theory in the community. But how they execute it, why? I mean, yes, it's to connect Afton being the kidnapper, but who the hell came up with a camping trip? Who steals a child in the middle of bumfuck nowhere? They could have chosen like a circus or a puppet show or like a carnival. I don't know, anything related to the game and it would have made more sense. Is this a reference to that one camping game Scott made? I don't know. Maybe. I feel the other subplot is a bit better. Mike's Aunt Jan is trying to take custody of Abby for the money. And I will admit, this does bring a lot of the funny parts in the movie, but it just feels so unnecessary. They could have just kept it to Mike not wanting his sister to starve. Or maybe it should just be the police in general trying to take her. It would leave out her neck getting snapped by Fredbear and her corpse just in Mike's house, not like that suspect. And about the police, Vanessa. I honestly thought she was gonna be the puppet because of how she acted throughout the whole movie, but they made her Afton's daughter, which, oh dear lord, that creates problems. Okay, so from what I interpret from the movie, she is the police officer responsible for making sure people don't die at Freddy's. But why should they have that? Vanessa knows that Purple Guy is the one responsible, and the police in general know about the shenanigans happening, so would it be reasonable to find him and arrest him? Even if he wasn't arrested earlier on, and even if they don't know he's the owner of the place. At best, he's committing manslaughter now since he privately owns the establishment, and there's been multiple missing persons reports. And you know what? That bitch should have died. You already sequel baited me with Springtrap, you don't need to do her too. Have Mike bring her flowers to her grave, pan the camera out, and show the original 5 kids' graves like in the end of Pizza Sim. You don't even need to change the dialogue, he knows that ghosts are real now, so it's fine. And god, the way Afton controlled the robots was whack-ass. One drawing! It took one drawing to convince the children he brutally murdered that actually, you know, he's just a chill guy, just a normal human being, just like you and me. Here, load these unsuspecting victims to a jigsaw trap that I made. Why? They did it. Shut up, don't question it. Look, I love the guy. But Scott is not the best writer. I think the game's story overall is great, but there's more retcons in the FNAF lore than I can count with my fingers and toes. And the entire story is held together with spaghetti noodles Matt Pat cooked after taking a bottle of Adderall. But man, it's shit like this. It's just kinda dumb. Alright, so, unhinged ranting over. Final thoughts. Is it worth watching? I think it just really depends on if you like FNAF. Despite all the negative stuff I said, there is good in this movie, and a lot of the negative stuff can be excused because this movie was made for the fans. I need to remind you, this has been in production for 8 years. It is a miracle it was ever made. Five Nights at Freddy's started as a point-and-click jump-scare game, and a last-ditch effort from a man who lost his faith in order to save his own life. This isn't just a movie, it's a personal thank you from Scott Cawthon to any person who made a band song, discussed his theories, watched the Let's Plays, or played his games. On a less sappy note, this one's for the FNAF heads in the back. Yeah. That one's for you. And I mean, hey, it's already made $100 million in the box office, so hopefully this is the worst of the series. So yeah, thank you for watching. More content to come in the future. Now, if you need me, I'm gonna go back into my time capsule for when FNAF 2 comes out in 8 years. See ya!